Simmons podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network. Brought to you by SeatGeek, our presenting sponsor, the easiest way to shop for tickets thanks to their revolutionary grading system. Football fans, I hope you use the $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase on NFL tickets code. It's promo code BSNFL. If you haven't used it yet, use it this weekend. Download the SeatGeek app or go right to SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. They give you the confidence you need when it comes to getting the right mortgage when you're buying a home or financing your existing home loan. Get a real mortgage approval in minutes. You can even adjust the rate and length of your loan in real time to make sure you're getting the right solution. That's Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Bill Simmons. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, and MLSconsumeraccess.org. Number 3030. Don't forget to check out the Ringer NFL show, which is heated up with 4 podcasts a week, including 2 that are hosted by Tate Frazier and Mike Lombardi. One caveat on that podcast, we're putting the ones with Tate and Mike up on Sunday night, right after the games. You can get the kind of the instant takes. Good times all the way around. All right, first, Pearl Jam. 80 Samberg for the first time in the BS podcast.
It's happening.
We've circled each other forever.
We have. Mike sure says hi.
He's been on a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet man.
Yeah, I'm going to have him on again before baseball playoffs when he's... Let's get him a little more hysterical.
When he gets really heated.
Yeah. What are your favorite teams? Go through them.
I'm from Berkeley, so I grew up with the A's. Raiders were in LA, so I'm Niners, and then Warriors.
A's, that's weird.
Well...
They need a new stadium. There's always these weird stories that come out. They might go here,
Yeah.
They might go there. Nobody's ever decided.
The stadium situation is Al Davis's fault.
Yeah.
And it's
Who's not
affecting
dead?
them. The baseball team is now, suffering for it.
Yeah.
But every team in the East Bay is going to move.
I know, which is weird because everybody keeps saying how the East Bay is taken off.
It is.
And it's a great place to live, which seems to be true.
It's a wonderful place.
And then they're losing all their teams.
It does, I mean, I guess they think they can make more money elsewhere, but...
Yeah. The Warriors make sense because you put that downtown in a giant complex. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
It's also just Oakland has suffered through the Warriors for so many.
I know.
I grew up on the Warriors. Me and my dad watched the Warriors no matter what. And now they're winning, and I'm so happy. And it's also kind of bittersweet because they're leaving.
And the bandwagon potential of the team exceeded anyone's expectations because you had this diehard, beaten down fan base, and now all of a sudden they become the sexy team that the 9-year-old kids across America and Europe and China are wearing the jerseys, and it's like, what happened?
For me, maybe more shocking than that they started winning was when they got to the finals, seeing all of the celebrities in Oakland, seeing Jay-Z and Beyonce sitting courtside at the Coliseum where I grew up going, where it just felt like it was a wasteland. And now it's it's like a hot club.
I remember I hadn't gone to a game until the late 90s, and I was absolutely stunned the first time I went how cool the crowd was. It was like everything I wanted from a basketball crowd. All different types of people, super diverse.
Yeah, the Bay is that.
And they were really getting on Chris Webber, and because he was on the Kings at that point, they're just killing him. I was like, this is great. I had no idea this world existed. Yeah. And now it's very wealthy there.
It really is. But you still got Marshawn coming home and dancing and everyone's going crazy. Yeah.
I was dubious of it, and it really seems legit and like he's going to last the whole year and kind of be a badass.
Well, it seems like they got a couple other backs that are good, too, so they'll use them sparingly.
Do you think they actually leave?
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm still waiting for this to fall through at the 11.5th hour. Because, Vegas is involved, which is the shadiest city in America at this point.
You never can be sure. But, I mean, the Warriors couldn't be more successful, and they're leaving.
Right.
So if they're going to go, then the Raiders, who are knocking on the door of being great.
It's so strange.
Yeah. It sucks so bad that it's right when both of them are doing so well.
The Raiders are a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who I would take over them right now.
What do you want to... Let's get your plugs out of the way now, because there's a lot of stuff I want to hit. So just plug stuff, so we're not doing it at the hour, 15-minute mark.
My only thing is Brooklyn Nine-Nine's coming back Tuesday, 9:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Season 5.
5 seasons.
It flew by,
does
right, guys?
syndication even matter anymore? Because in the 1980s, you would be like, "You're 5. That means we're gonna be blah blah blah." But now Netflix, all Hulu, all these places. Does it matter?
I think it kind of matters to like 5 people.
Okay. Are you one of the 5 people?
I'm sort of one of the 5.
Yeah, so that's good.
I'm like the bottom rung of the 5.
What's been the thing you've been most surprised by about doing a yearly half-hour sitcom for a network television? Television network, I should say.
Probably how much I've enjoyed it, just like from a lifestyle perspective. I knew I would like it creatively because it was Schur and Dan Gore, who those guys are great.
Yeah.
It was the only way I was going to do a show like this was with people like that, where I was like, oh, if we could potentially be in the conversation with other shows like, you know, The Office and Parks and Rec or 30 Rock, those types of things that are, you know, people who came before me SNL-wise did that I really respected and thought were funny. Because for me, I'll do anything I think it's genuinely funny. So that's why I love doing Brooklyn. Every day it's just lots of jokes. And it's so comfortable. It's a really nice life to shoot a show.
During the day.
The writers write the stuff for you.
Yeah.
And you just show up and you get to say other people's jokes that they wrote, which is just delightful. I mean, I add stuff, but you know.
So you must have been like laughing your ass off in like the 10th episode. You have a full gas tank?
Yeah. It's very comfortable. It's very the opposite of SNL schedule-wise.
Did you have it harder than most with SNL because of the time frame of shooting the videos with the guest hosts? It seems like you did.
Yes. Thank you for asking, because I love complaining about this.
Well, it's not a complaint as much as the reality of the situation. You had the guest host for how many days?
Me and Akiva and Yorma, who are the other 2 dudes that made those with me on the island. That's us. It got to the point where we just did one every week. It was kind of just understood. And there were many weeks where we would say, we don't have a good idea. And they would say, do one anyway. Yeah. And then sometimes it worked out and they were good. And sometimes it was like the week that people were like, those guys suck. Right. We'd be like, we know.
This sucks. It's not good anymore. And the guest host every time was saying to you, or they're probably excited to be in one, right?
Well, Lauren was just saying it. He's like, tell those guys to make one. And we'd be like, all right, we're going to like break down.
Yeah.
But I mean, to his credit, half the time we would come up with something that worked. Like, I think one of the ones we were so sure was a disaster and was going to tank was Shirani, the one with Rihanna.
Really?
We were like, we had a whole other idea and then we switched it up at the last minute because we didn't think it was funny enough. And they were like, maybe this will work. And then the schedule got all screwy and, you know, we only had time to shoot like a fraction of what we wanted to shoot. And she had to leave because she had to get up early for the rehearsal. All these different things came flying at us. And we were like, well, this one's a fucking mess. We're done. It sucks. We ruined it. It sucks. Because we were all sleep deprived and like psychotic.
Yeah.
And then it went great.
I think we have now, enough time has passed where you guys officially don't get enough credit for those videos and how impactful they were. Because I think in the moment when it was happening, you tapped into something and then people are like, oh, this is where it's headed. These guys are first, but now there's going to be more. And then you realize 11 years later that it's really hard to make these and make them consistently well and be creative with them. And there's so much bad video just everywhere now that I think as the years pass, I think it's good for the legacy of it.
Well, thanks. We're proud of them. I definitely, every now and again, we'll just choose a random one that we like forgot about and go back and watch it. And I'm always happy that there's a few like good hard laughs in almost all of them.
Yeah. I remember when I knew they were the biggest, when I knew it had transcended anything was at the Super Bowl in like 2010 in Miami, whenever that last Miami one was. And I happened to be on a boat in one of those like stupid, some rich guy had a party and it's like a friend of a friend. It's like, we got to go. This is going to be great. And Saturday afternoon, I'm like, all right. We go. And I'm on a boat. That song started playing and the whole boat went crazy and knew every word. I was like over 40 at this point. I'm like, wow, okay. Is this how this works now?
It's crazy. When we made that song, it was really just, it was about like, you know, Rick Ross videos and stuff.
Yeah.
But it has definitely turned into a thing where like people feel compelled to listen to that song if they're on a boat of any size or type.
It's the #1 boat song.
The
Love Boat had the title for like 30 years.
We locked it up. We locked it up, man. I don't know. Yeah. It's great.
So like walk me through the process of that idea.
That one...
One of the three of you gets obsessed with something about Rick Ross videos? How does it go?
That one actually was just... we were listening to different beats, and we found that beat, and we were like, this one is so good. We have to do something with this beat. So then Akiva and I kind of locked ourselves in the studio and just were playing it on a loop, and I just started screaming the chorus at him. And he said, yes, it's that.
And then you fill in the blanks after that.
Yeah.
And then how long did it take to like actually write the video? Because you have a time. You have a...
Well...
Do you have a finish line? Like a couple...
The trick we pulled off after... I want to say 3 seasons, was we signed a record deal. So we took the summer twice to make our first 2 albums from SNL. We rented this big old house.
Remember record deals?
Yeah.
Go way back.
We were on the tail end of it. It wasn't gangbusters, but it was great. And the cool thing about it was we controlled the songs. So the videos could be on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hulu couldn't like block it. It was all NBC red tape stuff. But because it was our stuff that we had made outside of the show, we would basically just come in and be like, okay, we're making this and we want to loan it to the show for free, basically. Right. The label would pay for videos even.
Did they hire you guys because they knew video and YouTube and that whole era was coming? Or they just liked your stuff and thought you'd work in the old structure of the show?
We were writing for the MTV Movie Awards when Fallon was hosting. And we wrote 2 out of the 3 tapes that he did. We wrote the Batman opening, and the Star Wars like lava planet thing. And we just kind of hung out with him, and he brought a bunch of SNL writers, and he brought Steve Higgins and Mike Shoemaker, and we kind of all hit it off. And he always tells it as, we were shooting late. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and we were still there, like pitching in jokes. And he was like, "Who are these guys? They're so into it. They're so wacky." Yeah. So he recommended us to Lorne, and Higgins and Shoemaker recommended us to Lorne to be like, "You should maybe look at these guys." We had made a couple of like pilot presentation things, like one for Comedy Central, one for Fox, and I had done stand-up, so I did like Premium Blend.
But some of the videos you guys had made at Lonely Island had become like a thing in the early stages of video internet, right?
Yes, depending who you ask. Like for people who are paying attention to that, yes. Like we were part of Channel 101 with Harmon and Sharab and all that stuff, and we also had, I couldn't even tell you what our traffic was, but we had a website and we had action on it.
It was so funny how fast it flipped. When I was working, I was on the initial writing staff for Kimmel, so the first 18 months, and when we needed videos, there was no YouTube. Like we had this guy who was in charge of video, and we had to go to him and be like, "Hey, we're looking for the Bub Rub video." When he talks about, that was in Oakland actually. Remember the Bub Rub? Talk about the whistles go woo woo. Oh yeah. We're like, how do we get that? And he goes on the dark internet and finds the video and gets it. And then all of a sudden it flipped, and video was super accessible.
Yes. Well, the
probably
first
like
time,
around 05.
When we first heard of YouTube was after Lazy Sunday aired.
Yeah.
The Sunday after it aired, a bunch of people were sending links and they were being like, "Hey, your thing's on this thing called YouTube," and that was sort of like, I think the first time a lot of people had heard of it.
I would say it was probably the first major YouTube moment. I can't think of anything that, I'm sure something else happened before, but that was the first time. I remember the views mattered. People report stories about writing about the views.
Yes, I remember the stories. Views. Yeah, it was like it reached 1 million views. Right. And everyone was like, "No way!"
That's amazing. and that was it.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, video, there's no way you could have seen any of that coming.
No. I mean, I've said this a million times, but it really is the truth. We just were hoping that it was going to air.
Yeah, you're trying to make
it was our first season.
You figured like it was like the 1250?
Yeah. We'd done a couple of things that had gotten on at that point. But, in your first season or two, usually you're just trying to like get by and hope that the audience likes you enough to stay.
And that turned out that whole cast, that was just this great mix of people in that cast.
I think so.
All were kind of at the right point of their careers for when they joined the show or where they were. And so it's pretty neat.
Our second season, a lot of people left after our first season.
But then
it was such a small group. There was something really special to me about those couple of seasons in a row where it was like our crew sort of me and Bill Sudeikis and Wig, and then you still had, Daryl, Seth moved over to Update.
The vets.
Yeah. And there was like Amy, Maya, Keenan, Armisen, Forte.
It was less than 12.
Have been it.
Yeah.
It was, I think it was 11. Something like that. And at every table read, you're just like, the table read's not too long. Everyone has a show every week. Everyone's involved in everything. There's, everyone's strengths. So, no one's competing as much. Everyone sort of had their own lane. Not that it's not good when there's a lot of people, but it felt really pure.
I've said this before on my pod where my theory in this was always that SNL is like a basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And you have basically, it should be a 9-man, you have a 12 person lineup, 9-man rotation. You have your top 3.
Yeah.
You have your one guy who's setting picks, doesn't care about the glory, and you go all the way through.
Yeah.
And anytime the cast swells too far, that's usually when the season's rocky. So I did a podcast in Lauren's office 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I was all excited to spring the basketball thing at him. And I was like, I can't wait to throw this at him. So I laid it out, I do the whole thing, and he's like, I think it's more like a baseball team. And then just completely flipped it on me. And by the end of it, I was like, I'm an idiot. And that's why you're the best. You're Lynn Michaels. But
he's good.
But I was always pretty confident in that. I always like when it's a smaller cast. I like when more people are involved.
Yeah.
I just think because everyone's more invested, that's when stuff gets goofier and people have to kind of go outside of what maybe their comfort zone is.
Right. You find new things more because you're not just being asked to do what you're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. That said, there were periods of time where there's overlap of different generations that are just mind-blowing, where you have the Harvey Hartman, Jan Hooks,
oh yeah,
era, and then also Sandler Farley,
right,
Rock Spade, Mike Myers. All those people were there at the same time.
It was 1990. It was two eras colliding. Yeah,
so many of those people are all timers.
One of those mid 2000 years was like that, where it was two what you just laid out.
Yeah,
there was two eras that kind of bled over each other.
There was Farrell, McKay, and Tina Jimmy stuff.
Yeah,
where you're that's a lot of firepower too.
What was your thought when you watched this last season, where you had 2 people that weren't on the cast getting just a ton of attention and at bats?
I mean, these are strange days, is what it would look like to me. I don't know. I mean, if you have a cast that is now, I think, because the show got so much attention the last few years, the audience now knows them and is pulling for them. It takes a while, generally, for cast members to sort of get the audience on their side.
Yeah.
But, I mean, no one knew that Melissa coming in and doing Spicer was going to be something she did more than once, I think. That would be my assumption. They're like, oh, man, wouldn't it be so funny if Melissa did this?
They knew with Baldwin.
Yes, they announced it with Baldwin.
Yeah.
But I think... I don't know. I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone in that cast that was like, I have a Trump. But... what are you going to say? When you work there, it happened all the time. It never happened when I was there where somebody... Well, no, it did. I mean, Tina would come in and do Palin. And we were grateful for it because it got so much attention on the show and she was great at it.
Yeah.
Just like Alec was
great at it. That was almost preordained. The way she had the wig and everything. It was looked like her.
Yeah, as Lauren tells it, the day after they announced her, 5 different people came up to him and said, Mr. Michaels, what a gift.
Yeah.
She looks just like Tina.
Totally.
He had to do it. But, I mean, I don't know. I think there are moments like that where that's why he's Lauren. He knows what to do. He's like, this moment calls for Alec doing this, and that's the way it's going to go, and it worked. I mean, they just won a ton of Emmys.
When did you feel like you weren't the new guy anymore?
Probably my 3rd or 4th season. Something like that. I had an interesting, space there. We like you said, we spent so much time doing pre-tapes that on the one hand, my position was kind of set early on, maybe earlier than a lot of people, where I knew what I was going to be doing and what they liked from me.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I also really loved doing the live show, and I felt like in a lot of ways I was held at arm's length from that more than I would want to be because I was doing so much pre-tape stuff. And then sort of by the last 2 or 3 years of my time there, I felt like I started cracking the live show more. Start getting stuff on, like the Nick Cage on Update kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Where it was the goofiness of the shorts, but I was finding my way into like the confidence live to like pull it off performance wise.
Where do you stand on when they bring the person who's being parodied in the sketch on to confront the person who's parodying them? Because I always feel like from that moment on, it loses like 30% of whatever because that's the danger. Flipped.
I knew going in with Cage that if he was willing to do it, that I was willing to give up that 30% because I am obsessed with that dude.
How can you not be?
He's the greatest. He's like arguably the most compelling person ever. And he's so like, he had the exact reaction you want someone to have when you're doing like a quote unquote impression of them. He was like, no, I understand you're doing an insane character and calling it me. And like, yes, that's correct. You get it.
That's the show.
Yeah. Like you're the jumping off point for lunacy. It would be like, if Will Ferrell ever did, Harry Carey with Harry Carey. Harry Carey doesn't actually, ask people if the moon was made of cheese, would you eat it? Right. But he's like a wild looking dude.
That's why they had so much trouble with Obama, because they could never figure out how to do the ridiculous version of him.
Yeah.
And it was like, what do you do? I mean, basically the closest they came when it was The Rock Obama, when it was like The Rock as Obama and he's just being ridiculous. But
I'm going to have to take credit. That was my pitch.
That was a great idea. But that's always when it's the best, when it's the completely over the top version of.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem with Trump in some respects is how do you do Trump when the real Trump is a character?
Well, it's tough to flip that. Yeah, I have trouble watching even when it's Alec doing it and it's funny. I still am just, it's like sad because he's so off the rails.
We are going to take a quick break to talk about Gillette. Did you know the tip of a Gillette razor blade is measured on an atomic scale? Meaning their blade edges are thinner than a single brain cell? Oh yeah, that's true. That precision is the work of many brain cells, hundreds of members of Gillette's research and development team. They've spent over 4,700 years combined working to make your shave closer and more comfortable. That's longer than the Egyptian pyramids have been around. Apparently, I have no idea. While over 1,000 craftsmen and women in Boston, hey Boston, I like that city, are busy making your blades, another team is putting your blades through more than 60 extremely strict and precise quality checks. Fail just one of these tests, it doesn't leave the factory. In other words, the hardworking people at Gillette never stop working to make your blades better. And it's no coincidence that since they named the new stadium, Gillette Stadium, the Patriots have just been ripping off Super Bowl wins. Now, that includes the price tag, all this good stuff. You can get Gillette blades at their lowest prices in years. See for yourself at GilletteOnDemand.com. Once again, GilletteOnDemand.com. Gillette, the best a man can get. Pricing applies to select products and is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Can we go back to Nick Cage?
Yes.
Do you have 3 Nick Cage stories, 2? What? Because I just want to say, so you know, I'm equally obsessed. We have this podcast called The Rewatchables where we talk about just movies that are on all the time.
Yeah.
And we did Spade. We haven't run it yet. But I actually started an argument about would this movie have been better with Nick Cage than Keanu. Young Nick Cage. We're talking like 93 Nick Cage.
Okay.
Everybody shouted me down. I always feel like they underestimate Nick Cage.
What's 93 Nick Cage doing?
93 Nick Cage is like before he goes into Kiss of Death and puts on all the muscle.
Pre or post?
Pre-Con Air, pre-Face Off.
Okay.
It's before the wheels have come off.
So you're saying like
young Nick Cage, like leaving Las
Arizona,
Vegas. Yeah, post-Raising Arizona.
He was like